Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink.
I got you.
Let's go.
In regards to the ball, still experiencing the disappointment associated with our last performance. It's just tough to swallow. It's tough to accept. Coming to grips with that, assessing what transpired, going through or starting the process of going through the normal things that you do. Unfortunately, at this time of year, I start first and foremost by saying, obviously didn't anticipate being here in this position. Disappointed by it. Understand that, we better make some changes in terms of the things that we do. We better look at every aspect of it.
And let the offseason for 2021 begin. Needless to say that a lot of Steeler fans and the organization, Steeler Nation, did not expect to see this coming very soon. But here we are right now, still very well fresh off an ugly playoff loss that just happened earlier in the week, losing to the Browns, 48-37 for the second straight playoff game. The defense cannot get any sacks, and they allow points in the high 40s once again. Here we're talking about right now another sad and disappointing end to the Steelers' season as they find once again for 3 straight seasons, December and January football do not finish very well down the stretch. We'll get into that in just a moment here. Once again, if you're joining here, watching live here, the Mass Steel Podcast, so of course, me and myself, Charles Prodigy, Richey, and we're getting ready to get going right now for this time here. And like I said, it is definitely a lot more questions than there are answers. Pretty much had a lot of stuff hitting the fan yesterday when I was retweeting from 97.1, the ticket in Detroit. Sources are being reported. I believe it was Mike Stone who was saying that the Lions were very close to getting a guy like Kevin Colbert over to join the Steelers right here. And I just feel like right now that was one that seemed like be pretty much premature at this point. A lot of people definitely reacted in a alarming fashion right there. A lot of people definitely taking a lot of jokes at it, or just a lot more stuff to note down. But anyway, we're going to get into a lot more stuff. Steelers got a very lot of laundry of free agents. We're going to get into just a moment. 12 starters right now, significant stars, definitely could say that will definitely be on this list and will not be fun cleaning up. Just only hopefully that at some point that the Steelers can probably try and catch a break and not have to worry about owing over $21 million in cap space. Remember, the biggest thing is, and I saw this article on Pro Football Talk, which was beginning in December, that the belief was that there's still optimism for the cap to drop as low as $195 million, given the fact that they're able to go back to some normalcy of having full fan attendance right now back in stadiums, which I think is going to be another uphill battle in itself, which I do not see right now at this point in time. I mean, especially when we got COVID, the vaccines barely starting to roll out. It's still a very murky area right there, which any of us can even say definitively that will even have normal fan attendance in sports. I mean, you see how sports leagues are barely just starting to get creative, have the leagues being played, especially considering the events this past summer. I mean, when you look back at the NBA, NHL, and of course, baseball, I mean, COVID-19 at the end of the day still presents a lot of uphill battles right there. And for a team like the Steelers, who's been doing a real good job, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, pushing close to the cap limit or getting cap compliance for the last few years, it's finally going to start to catch up with them, but not because they were just getting lazy or just mismanaging the finances. Don't get that wrong. I think the biggest thing is at the end of the day, too, when you have a thing like COVID-19 come into effect, something that our world has not ever seen before, they're definitely start reaping what they sow, I guess. And this is a time right now where the Steelers, one of the teams are going to be feeling the hammer felt right now. and not in a very good position, as Bob Labriola was saying earlier today on the Pittsburgh Steelers, the extra point with Missy Matthews and Mike Pursuta, and of course Craig Wolfley on today's edition. I mean, this is a list he hasn't seen in a long time. I mean, this big ever. And this is definitely a real scary time. But like I said, I mean, the good news is right now, Kevin Colbert is not going to the Lions right there. So again, I just want to apologize because I know definitely got a lot of traction on that yesterday, putting it up on my Twitter and of course my Facebook. Definitely a lot of people, of course, reacting, and just only to find out that the Detroit Lions, speaking of which, right now, they have finally got their man right now as they hire former Rams director of college scouting Brad Holmes on a 5-year deal. So he's going to be their guy for the Lions, not Kevin Colbert. Definitely put that to rest. The Rams right now, as a result of the tweaks of the Rooney Rule that was being reported and proposed since last May. Remember, they could award teams for hiring minority candidates right here. And you're looking at a team like the Rams, they're going to be receiving third-round compensatory picks as a result of that. And right now, I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing right there. I just will say right now, I mean, we've definitely heard some changes earlier today that has been coming up. I mean, for one, you look at it right now, Steelers not choosing to renew the contract. As far as what we do know right now of offensive core in there, Randy Fichtner, he is not going to be back. You also got offensive line coach Sean Surratt. He's not going to be back, as well as defensive back coach Tom Bradley right now. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, so those are the situations we look right there. I mean, even Brooke Pryor's even commented on that. Also, another thing to look out for too. Steelers senior defensive assistant, secondary coach. Watch out, another key name here. Daryl Austin is interviewing with Tennessee Titans to be their defense coordinator. So I got to tell you, I mean, right now, a lot of these changes, I mean, not just to the player roster, I mean, look at the coaching changes that are going to be coming up to follow. It is definitely a big slap in the face right now. And I think for a lot of Steelers fans right now, when you dominate a team like the Browns, who's been back in Cleveland since 1999, I mean, over the years, this has definitely become a different team. And I think a lot of Steelers fans' worst fears have come true. I mean, not only be one and done once again for the 5th time under Mike Tomlin, but losing the Cleveland Browns of all teams, I feel like. Well, again, I mean, that's no slight towards them. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you really got to start to wonder where this really starts to weigh on this team as far as, getting to the next level. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you always keep saying the standard is a standard. And I really do appreciate Mike Tomlin. This is a guy who's never had a losing season. But at some point, you also got to start really looking hard in the mirror. How far are you really willing to be patient with this? I mean, coming short of a Super Bowl team. I mean, if anything, if this was like the NBA, the Pittsburgh Steelers right now are becoming like the Sacramento Kings and the Portland Trailblazers. Starting to become mediocre these days. I mean, you have great regular season showings, but at the end of the day, what ends up happening when it comes to playoff time, I mean, we're back in the same situation. I mean, if it's not being one and done, they're probably winning 1, maybe 2 games, falling short. They've only been to the conference championship since being to their last Super Bowl only 1 time, which was back in 2016. I mean, which you could make an argument, that was probably like their last legit shot to even make a run. And the sickening thing about that, too, the irony in all this is when you look at, the struggles of the offense, I mean, as much as people want to be, still be mad about, some of the drama that was being flowed in there with, an Antonio Brown, we look back at the Facebook Live 4 years ago, I mean, then followed by a year and a half later, fast forward, Le'Veon Bell not coming to contract terms. At the end of the day, I mean, that Killer Bee offense did keep them very relevant, very much well in contention. And I always continue to state right here and say at the end of the day, I mean, what do they have to do? What do they have to show for it as far as any Super Bowl contention? But at the same time, too, despite some of their shortcomings, despite some of their disappointments, some of the injuries, I mean, they found ways to fall short. And when you also look at Mike Tomlin, too, I mean, considering everything that he has done with this team overall, coaching this team, and you really just, just got to look a little harder in the mirror. I mean, at some point, I mean, he's going on the final year of his contract. Only time will tell if there's going to be any indication that the Steelers are going to want to extend him. But I mean, at some point too, when you look, check it out. I mean, the last 6 seasons, including the playoffs, Steelers were 26-17. Okay, 26-17. That was including, with the Killer Bees right there. Last 2 seasons, 3 you should say right now, from 2018, it went down to just Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger. And of course, when he departed, Steelers from December and January football, 6-11, 5 games under 500, when it really starts to matter most. And of course, you got players, you got to start to come up. You got to perform out there. Coaches only do so much to get you ready. But I find it very disheartening for a defense like a guy that Keith Butler. When you really look at the final finishing product of how this defense finished out the season, this team finished 3rd in points allowed, which was 3. Which was 3rd, 4,893 points for the year. They were 3rd in total defense. They were 2nd in the league in takeaways. 1st in the league in sacks, which totally looked like a whole skeleton crew going into that game against the Browns. Just completely disappeared. And right now, one of the reports is too with Keith Butler, they're looking to work with getting him a new contract, but more so looking like year to year. They're trying to work with him at the age of 64. We've been hearing some reports from the last few days. I was listening on 93.7 The Fan and many Steelers outlets too, with guys like Arthur Moats and Andrew Filipponi and Chris Muller. There's been a lot of times right now where Mike Tomlin has been one of the guys who's been calling this defense a lot more. When you really look at it. He's been having a lot more of his imprint. Now, it's not to say that Keith Butler's having his duties stripped during the playoffs. That's not what I'm saying by any stretch. But how much, is it too? As you can imagine on that sideline, you still got a guy like Keith Butler who still got the headset right there to communicate to the guys with the green dot, let them know what they want to have called. I'm sure it's just a lot more Tomlin just getting final say in that regard. That's just the truth of the matter. But here we are, nonetheless. In case everyone is wondering right now, one of the biggest things, too, one of the questions, aside from the list of free agents we'll get to in a moment, right now, the Steelers draft positioning, according to Sporting News right now, they are projected to go at number 24th in the first round, since they bounced out at 12-4 right now. You got other teams who were also eliminated from the playoffs too. When we take a look at this list very hard, remember, don't forget, you also have the Colts, the Seahawks, Washington football team, of course, the Titans, the Bears, and now the Steelers right now. But as far as focus on the AFC right now, you got the Tennessee Titans. They're going to be at 22nd. You're going to be having the Indianapolis Colts right now on this list here at 21st. So they're 21st. Titans are 22nd. And then you also have, I already mentioned the Titans. Now you got the Steelers right now, 24th. That's where we're at right now. And I mean, it's just very, like I said, it's just very disheartening to say the least. To see how the season, a punch in the gut, no doubt about it. And this is what we're talking about right now. So the Colts are 21st in the first round, Titans are 22nd, and the Steelers are 24th. That's where we're looking at right now. And also an update too in regards to that. Speaking of the draft, the Steelers are looking potentially up to 3 compensatory picks for this year's draft, potentially. Because we're looking at too that over the cap is projecting that the Steelers will receive a 4th round compensatory pick for the 3-year, $39 million contract, which was signed by defensive tackle Javon Hargrave with the Eagles, and a 6th round pick for the loss of lineman B.J. Finney, who is now on the Cincinnati Bengals after being traded by the Seahawks. I mean, so those are 2 right now that more than likely they could expect. I mean, 2 for the time being, Javon Hargrave and B.J. Finney, but another one also on this list, which could also probably get them a 3rd right now. They could add an additional 6th round pick. So for the guys for Javon Hargrave, it looks like they'll be getting a 4th for Javon Hargrave, a 6th for B.J. Finney, and an additional 6 right here for the departure of Tyler Matakevich right now. And Tyler Matakevich right now, as we speak, we take a look at his situation and get ready to pull up right now. He is currently with the Buffalo Bills. So right now, so you're looking at a 4th, possibly 2 6th round picks. So it's possible they could have 3 this year as we take a look at things. So again, a lot of stuff, unfortunately, a lot of house cleaning a lot earlier than expected, to say the least. But for right now, I'm just very relieved that Kevin Colbert is not going anywhere for the time being. But we shall see until the day after that final draft. Once again, if you guys want to follow me on social media, you can definitely do so by following me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey. For the Man of Steel podcast on Twitter, it is at Man of Steel CJR and at Man of Steel Nation on Instagram. So let's go ahead and dive right into the Steelers 2021 unrestricted free agents here. Let's break down the 12 starters right now. You got left tackle Alejandro Villanueva for this year. Going into this year. And his current annual per year is $6 million with $6.5 million in guarantees. You also got left inside linebacker Avery Williamson with 3 annual per year averages $3.5 million, $1 million in guarantees, followed by right outside linebacker Bud Dupree at over $15.8 million annually and in guarantees. You got running back James Conner right now, who's currently averaging under $1 million at $793,822 annually and about $706,288 in guarantees. And then you also got on here, you got Jordan Berry, Juju Smith-Schuster, tackle Matt Filer, nickel cornerback Mike Hillen, wide receiver and special teams returner Ray McLeod, inside linebacker Robert Spillane, nose tackle Tyson Alalalu, and offensive tackle Zach Banner. Remember, he had his season ended early being on the injured reserved for the season shortly after that Giants game, during that Giants game, the opener of the season on the road in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So that's where we stand for right now. Very heartbreaking to say the least, but that's the updates we got right now and what we'll continue to provide here on the Man of Steel podcast right now. So, yeah, it's definitely, like I said, very disheartening, but this is the reality we're going to be looking at right now, trying to clear up right now for this season. Like I said, I mean, not going to be an easy walk in the park as usual, but you're looking about right now over $21 million in cap debt, basically cap hell right now for the first time in a long time that we've seen this team where they're in unfamiliar territory. I mean, right now, one of the biggest questions is too right now is what I really think it's going to break down to. I mean, have we seen the last of right now of quarterback Ben Roethlisberger and center Marquise Pouncey? Because I got to tell you, I mean, that's another one that's willing to be very back and forth right now. I mean, it's been no secret. We went over this many times that this coming year, he's going to be carrying a $41.25 million in cap hit right now. Now, should the Steelers be able to release him, they'll at least save $19 million. Unfortunately, they'll have $22.25 million in dead cap right there where money will not go anywhere. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest dilemmas right there. So you'd be looking at saving $19 million, which would not be a good thing right there. I mean, $19 million, that's pretty much very least they could save on his contract. And then you also look at, too, I mean, right now, aside from that, I mean, Marquise Pouncey, he's another big one on this list right now. He's going to be, if he continues to stay on this team, he's going to be carrying a cap number of $14.475 million right now. I mean, those are the biggest guys right here. I mean, they're going into. I mean, the good news is so far, I mean, you do not see Stephon Tuitt right now on this list, who's going to be on here. But, I mean, as Cam Hayward even said during one of his press conferences, I mean, a lot of people's jobs aren't safe, even mine's included. I mean, have we seen the last of Cam Hayward right here, who got his contract extension a week before the season, which was on Labor Day? And, I mean, you got a lot of stuff to go around here. I mean, a lot of detective work, no doubt about it. I mean, you can very well say, I mean, this is very much close, I mean, to, like, blowing up the team. I mean, pretty much. It's dangerously close. But, I mean, the very key thing is to remember that article I was mentioning on Pro Football Talk. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we will possibly see that the cap drops no lower than $195 million. Now, keep in mind, that could probably be a $20 million swing right there. Probably where the Steelers would probably be around a little over $1 million in cap debt, which I think will be a lot more sufficient and very reasonable to work out of. I hope it does not drop as $175 million, what we've been seeing projected from over the cap since October. But this is definitely the reality of the situations that they're going to be having to deal with right now. Let's get some other stuff that has been happening right now, too, aside from that. Missy Matthews also, too, the reporter for the Steelers, who's also salary reporter and host of the Steelers Extra Point. Right now, she was saying that the Steelers also announced the retirement today of longtime tight ends coach James Daniel. James Daniel spent 17 seasons with Pittsburgh, basically going back to 2005. In the final started with the final 2 years of Bill Cowher, and then of course Mike Tomlin right there. So he's definitely gonna be a guy right here. Or no, since 2004, excuse me. So in the final 3 seasons of Cowher's staff right here. So that's going to be another guy who's going to be stepping away right now. And let's go and get into some of the other lists on this free agency list that the Steelers will be having on here. You also got quarterback Cam Sutton right now, who's going to be under $1 million right now annually per year. Cassius Marsh, remember, he was one of the guys who was being called up, I think, for the practice squad onto the active roster. You also got nose tackle Chris Wormley. Offensive lineman Danny Isidora. Then you also got backup center J.C. Hassenauer right now. Who knows? I mean, if the Steelers may decide to go on the cheap this year, does Hassenauer stay around this roster, and maybe do they risk, I mean, doing a year without a caliber star because of how much you're going to be strapped in cap? That could be a possible reality right there. You also got fellow offensive lineman Jerron Jones right here, who's on here. Linebacker Jaron Elliott, backup right tackle Gerald Hawkins, safety Jordan Dangerfield, third string quarterback Joshua Dobbs, safety Marcus Allen, Ola Adeni right now, who's one of the backup linebackers, safety Sean Davis, linebacker Tigre Skills, and of course, last but not least, backup running back Trey Edmonds. I think a lot of those guys will definitely be gone right now, but those are like the star quality of talent that the Steelers are going to have to be without pretty much going forward. I mean, now a lot of people are pretty much, I mean, looking at this, I mean, you will probably, in your definition, say this could probably be a garbage team for a long time. Let's wait and see about that. Let's see where the salary cap drops, because I think that is going to be very key right there. And I think if that stands at $175 million, I think that's probably where the Steelers would have to probably have a long heart-to-heart conversation with Ben Roethlisberger, either take a pay cut or possibly retire. Remember, it's only going to be a $19 million in cap savings if he decides to get cut prior to June 1st. I mean, that's the biggest dilemma right here. So we got to look at this right now. I mean, going into the season. So we only got two people in dead money for the 2021 cap right now. Stefan Wisniewski at $187,500, and safety Antoine Brooks at $128,124. So those are the current situations we got right now. And let's go ahead and get in the fair foul right now. Get ready to wrap things up here in just a moment. Fair foul number one topic. Dale Lolley right now, DK Pittsburgh Sports, he gave the Steelers a very fair grade during this season for the defense, an A-. I'm going to have to say for right now, I'm not going to go with A-, but I'll probably go with B+, only because how they had to finish down the stretch right now. We've seen down the stretch with the loss of Bud Dupree, they have not been able to hold opponents to under 20 points the rest of the way. I mean, he gave up about 26 points, I believe it was, to the Buffalo Bills, 27 points to the Bengals on Monday night, 24 points to the Colts, and 24 points to the Browns, and 48, to the Browns in the playoffs right there. That defense cannot hold opponents beyond under 20 points. I mean, right now, and you look at a lot of these subtractions right now, that could be very, very well the future for the next season or two with this defense. We'll probably be seeing something maybe closely similar to 2013. I mean, like how much this defense could take a dip back, or maybe 2014. I'm not saying anywhere near that they're going to be having as close to the talent that they had performance-wise. That's probably going to be a pretty much idea where you'll be looking at right now. Blitzburg, what they have 4 straight seasons of 50 sacks or more, you got to believe that's going to be another thing that's going to be right behind them right there. I mean, one of the things, too, we saw finally spike up in the last 2 years, even when Ben Roethlisberger was lost, I mean, pretty much for 95% of last year's season, I mean, was finally the defense starting to create some turnovers. And that's going to be another thing right there. You got to imagine that number is going to be taking a huge dip going into this season right now. Right, so those are only things. I mean, basically, as he goes into a little bit more depth right now, he gave the defensive line A- right now. I mean, highlighting that Stephon Tuitt, he had 11 sacks in the season, which only 10 players in the NFL recorded double digits, largely because the NFL, that holding was going to be permitted in 2020. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, he even those guys like Tyson Alualu, Cam Hayward on there. Outside linebackers, he was an A+ right there. TJ Watt, who was leading the league in sacks right now. He led the NFL with 15 sacks. That was the lowest for a league leader since Kevin Green led the league with 14.5 with the Panthers in 1996. Inside linebackers, C- right now. I mean, of course, with the loss of Devin Bush, we saw how much different this defense was going to look right there. But I thought Robert Spillane did a wonderful job during that stretch. Since he got hurt in that Browns game, you look at that stretch up until the Washington football team. I mean, basically, he was another guy real quickly that took a dip, I mean, for this Steelers team. So that was a definitely big loss right there. Quarterbacks, he was definitely given a B+ right there, too, on here. Safeties, A-. I mean, with Mika Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmunds. I thought Terrell Edmunds had a pretty decent year right now. I mean, he was saying he easily had his best season in his third season, allowing completion percentage of 55.6 in his coverage. So, I mean, that's pretty good. And Mika Fitzpatrick, I mean, despite having, like, some of the limitations of a slow start, he was still able to make his damage a control this year when he had to. Coaching, he gave a B+. Overall, A- right now, as we look at. I mean, pretty much on the defense. So there you have it right there. I mean, say what you will about the playoffs, but I mean, at the same time, during the regular season, this was a very good team. And I know a lot of people will throw it in Steelers' faces that they had the easiest schedule True, but I think that's more towards the bottom of the list. I'm gonna look at like some of the stuff right there where they had to beat the Ravens twice. I mean, that first game more in particular, more in particular when they won their seventh victory of the year back on November 1st in Baltimore. That was not an easy game to win right there. I mean, started off right there with Robert Spillane, who had pick six earlier in that game, and they were able to hang on and win that game. And I just feel like right now, I mean, too, you also had to beat a good team earlier in the year, like the Titans. Browns were rolling. They were not a playoff team, but they were definitely a winning team at that point in time, too. I mean, beat a pair of playoff teams in that stretch. I mean, say what you will, a struggling Texas team right now who's going through a lot of turnover right now. I mean, Deshaun Watson, that's another topic of conversation who's on the list. Steelers being mentioned is possibly a potential team that could trade for him. I'm not sure if I see that happening, but who knows? Never say never, right? But, I mean, you still had to beat the Eagles. And even still, I mean, even as distracted, I think, as they were, once they had to have their second game of the season constantly being rescheduled, that was more so against the Ravens, which got canceled on Thanksgiving. I mean, that was right there. I mean, as piss poor that offense was with the short dink and dunk passes, the West Coast passing game right there, doing the short passes. I mean, this is where you saw them getting exposed, where they started to unravel. But at the end of the day, those are not games or like pushover games. And last but not least, the Colts game. Had to come back from about 17 points down in that game to win the division right there. And to be honest with you, like I said it before going into these playoffs, I mean, even when they lost to the Browns last week, I mean, was that going to be their last shining moments that really stood out for the 2020 season? That really saved them? I think so, and I think that's going to definitely be one thing right there. Last topic for fair foul right now, we've seen both the last of Ben Roethlisberger and Marquise Pouncey. I'm going to say foul for right now. I know a lot of people right now who are definitely so frustrated with Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, we've obviously seen the limitations for most of the season. But, I mean, at the same time, too, when he's been getting decent protection, yeah, he's been releasing the ball a lot quicker. Yeah, he's been asked to do a lot more. But, I mean, at the end of the day, he still performed, I think, very fairly well. It just wasn't until, like, that last stretch of the season. I mean, I think the games that really stood out for me where I was noticing signs of Roethlisberger, where he really started to show it, was very first, the Titans game and on the road in Tennessee, against the second game against the Ravens, the Washington, and then the last month of December, pretty much. That's really started to see the signs of this guy really start to go downhill right here, and this is where they're at. So, I mean, unless the cap changes significantly, Mike Tomlin seems to still give this guy a vote of confidence. Where you guys want to agree or disagree with him or not, I still feel like right now, as long as you got him backing them, and of course, Kevin Colbert, no offense. I mean, as long as he's still around, I think he's going to still be their guy in their eyes right there. It's kind of hard to part with that. But at the same time, too, let's just wait and see how this cap number drops up. And we'll continue to discuss more as we get closer to the official compensatory pick, where they're going to be looking at as far as like with the combine. Don't forget, we got the combine coming up in about over a month. So we'll see what kind of talent they could evaluate from there going into the draft. And plus, we got free agency and trades and more trending stuff around this team. You've been watching and listening to the Men of Steel podcast. I want to say thank you very much to my audience for a very wonderful 2020. Right now, we are on the clock for 2021. I'm Charles Prodigy Richey, the Men of Steel podcast. Once again, you guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey. For the Men of Steel podcast on Twitter, it is at Men of Steel CGR, at Men of Steel Nation on Instagram. As I leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.